I've been involved in all sorts of music. As a teenager, I went to orchestra and did the usual sort of classical thing. That's great. But not till I got to jazz did I find that there was something that would be challenging intellectually, if you like, and in terms of being able to improvise and kind of think on your feet. Well, jazz is a language that you have to learn, and I didn't realise that before I started learning a bit about it, going to class, but it is a language you have to learn, and there are lots of different conventions that happen. It's not as random as sometimes it seems to an audience. So typically you would play or sing the piece through. Quite often you play that twice or sing it. Well, you wouldn't sing it twice, but you might play it twice, and then after you've done that, that's when the solos start to happen. Sometimes you might have agreed that a certain musician will do the first solo. If not, sometimes someone will just do it. Quite often a guitarist, because they've been playing anyway, and they get into it. Sometimes a melody instrument, which we call all the melody instruments horns. So a horn will just pick it up and go ba-da-da-da-da-da, and in they'll get with the solo. No, they can't take that away from me. No, they can't take that away from me. My dad bought me a second-hand flute for about £20, I think it was, and I learnt. In those days, there was a very good peripatetic service to schools, so I joined the youth orchestra and played the usual sort of classical stuff, but didn't play jazz flute until I started on my jazz journey, if you like. Yeah, that was a very big challenge, because I was used to playing very different sorts of chords, sorts of notes, but it was a great challenge, or it is a great challenge. It's still a great challenge. But above all, I want my arms about you. Don't be. I think it's changed the course of my life in the last 8 years, I would say, since I've become involved with it. It's changed my approach to music, even to my whole attitude to music. It has changed. I became involved in jazz. So it runs very deep. I think whenever I want to express anything musically, the jazz style, if you like, it's just there. I can't help. When I started to sing jazz, it was like I'd come home musically. As I said, I've sung all sorts of different kinds of music, but it wasn't till I started singing and playing jazz that I felt, this is my sort of music. It expresses how I am inside, and of course that's different for every musician. I think every musician finds a style, a genre that is their home. It's not that you can't perform in other genre, but you know when you've come home, I think. I wish I'd found it when I was a teenager, really. Yeah.
how I got into opera is a bit like an accident, really. I never intended to be an opera singer. In fact, it's not the only thing I've ever done. But it was a way to earn money. So when I left university, if you wanted to earn money by singing, one route, very important route, is to go into an opera company. So after I finished my degree in Cardiff University, I then auditioned for Welsh National Opera Company, and I joined them. So I was with them for about 18 months or so, and then I decided to freelance. So that was my start in opera. I'd done opera singing before then, lots of studio performances in university and performances outside of university, but professionally I started with the Welsh National Opera. I never intended to be an opera singer. And in fact, I find it hard to even say I'm an opera singer now, even though I sing opera, or have sung opera. It's never been something I've particularly wanted to do. There are some people that they were born ready to go onto the stage, and that's all they've ever wanted to do. I have an attitude where it was just an opportunity, and I took it. Where I've really got enjoyment from is working with smaller scale opera, more psychodramas, I suppose. And in the last 10, 15 years particularly, I've been associated with more contemporary music. Well, it's like a lot of things, you know, a lot of things that happen in life are serendipitous, if that's the word. You've come upon them, and they just, you know, you don't actively seek out these things. I mean, at the time when I did 8 Songs for a Mad King by Peter Maxwell Davies, for the first time, I'd just been singing in another contemporary piece by him called The Lighthouse. So I was involved in that. And then the producer of that opera contacted me and said, look, we've got this piece we'd like to do. This is with Music Theatre Wales. And would you be interested? And he prayed for me the recording which they had. And I have to say, when I first heard the recording, I thought, I'm never ever going to do this. Because for anybody that knows the piece 8 Songs for a Mad King, which was written and performed in 1969, just to give some perspective to it, it's one of these iconic pieces of the 20th century, in British music particularly, but it's got an international following as well. But the musical language is so extreme, it's of this expressionist nature. So as a singer, I have to scream, I have to grovel around with the voice, sing high, sing low, sing with a standard operatic voice. It's an acting piece, really. And in fact, the person who first sang it was an actor rather than a singer. Probably the most visually arresting part of the score is the third song. And if you see here, he's written it in the form of a birdcage. Now, the fact of the matter is that the Mad King, who is based on the real life story of George III, George III used to play with bullfinches. He used to talk to them and speak to them and sing with them. And so Peter Maxwell Davies, or Max as he's often called, wrote this piece in the form of a birdcage. So when you have to learn this piece, what you need to understand is, for the singer, you have to look this way and you follow the lines. So the singer addresses the birds, and then it goes into this tuk 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 tuk, you know, little bird sounds. While that is happening, the flute, which is the other player with the king, the singer, is playing along this line, and there are little motifs which the flute comes in and out of, and they can choose different parts of a phrase or mix the phrases up. So it does that, and the singer goes line by line to at the very end, which is there. The flute has changed the pattern of the playing, and the king is just left saying, I mean no harm. It's a very visually arresting part of the score, and it's probably the most famous image from this piece. But in fact, the whole piece is quite interesting if you care to look at it. But that is certainly very fascinating. Well, I mean, the attraction of opera is that you've got singers to start with who are highly trained in a classical sense, but it's tied in with drama. It's tied in with the art of scenery and production. I mean, the famous phrase that Richard Wagner used was Gesamtkunstwerk, which is a whole art form, using all the different aspects of art. So singing for me has always been part of a portmanteau of things, I suppose, because I do other things as well. You know, I conduct choirs and I write music. I can play the piano. You know, lots of different things. You know.
Te vieni alla finestra, o mio tesoro, te vieni a consolare il pianto mio, se neghi a me di dar qualche ristoro, davanti agli occhi tuoi morir volio. Tu c'hai la bocca dolce più che il miele, tu che il zucchero porti in mezzo al cuore. Non esser gioia mia con me crudele, lasciati almen veder mio bel amore.
There's no restrictions on you. Like, I think that's the other thing. It was more I went for that kind of genre because you can do what you want. It's like you make the show, and I'm still trying to experiment with that now, whereas in other types of genres sometimes you are restricted. Classically you wouldn't be able to run around the stage, you know, people would kind of frown upon it, I suppose. When I actually got home last night from the gig, we drove to Plymouth Uni and all the way back, and I got back home at 2 in the morning, and I'm in bed at 2:30, and I was trying to go to sleep, but I had these lyrics just going around my head, and I just thought, actually, I need to just write them down. So I actually wrote last night, honest, there's no lie, honest, on my phone, in my notes, I've got a verse, chorus, and I've got an outro thing and a bridge section. Just all these lyrics just came to my mind. I just thought, I've got to write them down. And once again, I can imagine singing and fronting that. And so I will go now somewhere like here, like a studio by myself, and I'll just play through some chords, and I'll start putting the lyrics through and make sure I can get like a strong concept with it. So yeah, literally it's very random. Sometimes I can sit down and think, do it, and other times it's like a bunch of lyrics, and yeah.
There's no respect in this unpleasant place.
I actually joined a function band for a while, and I was in a function band for about a year and a half, but it was a fairly serious function band. It's gigging like every weekend, every Friday and Saturday evening, and it was just like the pubs and things like that around town and various places. But because we were covering such a wide range of material as well, so we were having like kind of softer rock things, and then I was singing all sorts of stuff like AC/DC, Guns N' Roses, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Joan Jett. It was all a massive mixture and mainly quite heavy. But that really taught me a lot, like especially when you're just singing, because you kind of suddenly, it was like one night I was singing and I suddenly thought, hang on, I can't just stand here and hold the microphone. Like, I need to move around, I need to express what I'm singing about, and also it, obviously for the strength of my voice as well, because of doing 2-3 hours singing on those weekends, I had to really learn to get that strength there, and it is just practice. So just keep on practicing as much as you can, and you put the performance into it, because when you perform you don't think so much as well about when you're singing, so then the music kind of flows a bit better. You're able to get those higher notes sometimes just by putting the performance in and not stressing too much about what's going on with your vocal cords. I play piano. I was classically trained when I was younger, so piano was my first ever instrument. So I finished all my grades when I was about 18, 19, but I'd started guitar when I was about 13. So I was and guitar was always kind of a behind sort of thing, like I did piano first, then guitar, and then I did vocals, but then my guitar kind of ended up taking a bit of a backseat for a while. And it was only been the last sort of 4 years really that I suddenly thought, actually I really want to push the guitar even more. And when I finished my my songwriting degree, I went back and did an extra year just purely guitar. When I went into songwriting, originally I was always going to do music, but I wanted a gap year of just mainly songwriting. And I was looking for a songwriting course at the time when I was about 17. And I found this one in Bristol, and I thought I'll try that, just see what that does for a year. And that then opened up the idea of songs not only being creative with how like you feel, but conveying certain messages, but also it's like the kind of almost the commerciality as well, like making sure other people relate to what you're talking about. Personally, to me, rock. When I write for that kind of style, when I imagine myself, because I imagine fronting it, so I imagine playing the guitar and singing it. So when I start writing the lyrics, it's rocking for me is about making a statement, really. Like, it's kind of, when you're writing a song, it's like it has to convey a message. It has to be a strong kind of message, mainly.
Once or twice and just take your bet, but then they take you down underground where you can't be found. So let me tell you, friend, you can't breathe down, there's no way out. Let me help you break it down, you can't stand. Chat with us. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for sticking around and watching us. Thank you very much. Have a good rest of your day. Cheers.